Chapter 1 of The Fortune Hunter, a novel of New York society. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Kelly Taylor. www.tla.wapshotpress.org. The Fortune Hunter by Cora Mowatt. Chapter 1. You've displaced the mirth, broke the good meeting with most admired disorder. Macbeth. Money is power, 'tis said. Halleck. Try a wing of this partridge, Ellery. These are the first of the season. You don't eat. Thank you. I prefer discussing this vol au vent, a favorite dish of mine. By the way, I dare say Alsop will do justice to your delicate partridges. Certainly, my dear fellow. There's nothing like partridge prepared by one of these French cooks. Food for the gods, decidedly. Give me half of one. 3 young men were seated round a table spread with Epicurean viands in one of the private rooms of Delmonico's sumptuous establishment. I said young men, but the term could only be applied par complaisance to the eldest, Mr. Joseph Ellery, or it should be considered in the application as descriptive rather of his appearance than years. The first leaf of his worthy father's family Bible would probably have proclaimed that he had seen the ripe maturity of 40 in days long past, but as that telltale page had been carefully destroyed, as the ladies pronounced Mr. Ellery an accomplished beau, and as he was in the habit of designating himself as a garçon, and more than this, as the united skill of Grandjean and Parmley and Derby and Tryon had been called into action to preserve the bloom of his youth unimpaired, I was only following the example of the fashionable world in ranking him with the young men. The gentleman on his left, who he addressed as Alsop, was one of that large class of young men about town, whose characters are the most difficult to draw because there are no landmarks at which you can begin, inoffensive creatures who seek for pleasure whatever they can find it, and harm nobody so much as themselves. You may describe their well-cut coats, their slender canes, the moustaches they are daily supplicating to give expression to their lips, the color of their hair and eyes, but the features of the internal soul too seldom display themselves to be caught and commemorated. Next to Mr. Alsop, and apparently doing the honors of the table, sat his friend Augustus Brainard. The expression of his face was social, sensual, jovial, and reckless. The twinkle of his bright dark eye seemed to say, "An easy life, a short one if you like, but a merry one for me." His features were all tolerably fine, and after he had paid an hour's devotion to the mirror, they might have been called handsome. His face was full and unfurrowed, a profusion of brownish hair, though carefully training, had been taught to curl about his low, narrow forehead, and a pair of thrifty whiskers, rather strongly inclined to be an auburn hue, formed a not very imperfect semicircle around his cheeks and chin. He was tall and finely formed, his manners polished in the extreme, and always carried about him plenty of the small change current in conversation, but was almost as deficient in bank-notes as his own purse. The lively conversation with which the gentlemen were discussing their dinner gave more relish to their food than all Delmonico's piquant sausage. Ellery had commenced one of his most amusing stories, and Brainard had just cut the cork of the first bottle of Clicquot, which flew toward the ceiling with an exhilarating sound, when one of the French waiters, bowing himself into the room,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?